Okay, in the previous video, I showed you guys how to make a pocket notebook using staples or staplers. As you can see here, looks just like that. And this is the simplest method. It's definitely the fastest as well. But in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to use thread . For this method, you can use any kind of all-purpose thread, any color you'd like. It can be colored, or it can be just a plain white, cream, or even like black thread. I do recommend Coats and Clark machine quilting is also good. I've also used extra strength upholstery thread, sometimes also use it. Really just depends on what you feel most comfortable using. Also, it's important to note that what makes the sewing part of the binding go smoothly is if you wax your thread. Sometimes you can actually buy thread that has already been waxed. I personally feel okay not using wax. I think it's just more of like what you're used to using. But yeah, if you find that it's harder to for a thread to go through paper, then waxing your thread before sewing will definitely help. Okay, so first step is to mark where on the first sheet where the holes will be. So what I do is I fold just the first sheet. Once you have this line marked, the next thing you're going to do is poke some holes. So the distance between the holes really depends on how thick your material, your thread is. I find it easier if the holes are more far apart, the thicker the thread you're using. So for example, with cords or with yarns, I would definitely have the holes a little bit farther apart. But with these kind of thread, the closer they are with each other, the better. Of course, that means you're gonna have to sew more stitches, and which is fine. If you're gonna do this, you would like to make it the proper way. So for this one, just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to poke the holes where the lines are. But you don't have to do it that way. You can also use a ruler and mark where you want there to be. But for this one, I'm just gonna poke on where the lines are. Make sure that it is really centered. That's why I folded this, because that's kind of like my guiding line. Or what actually might also help, if you'd like, is to just use a ruler and mark it with a pencil. I don't have pencil right now, so let me just use this coloring. Just really light. There you go. Just a really light line there. So you can follow it down. Okay, so the reason we're only gonna do this on the first sheet is because we're actually gonna use this as a guide for the rest of them. So after you do that first one, you put it on top of your stack and make sure everything is aligned. And you know what? What I actually use is I use these rocks that I got from the beach. And oh my gosh, I cannot do bookbinding. Let me just tell you guys, I cannot do bookbinding without this rock. It's so helpful in keeping things in place. Okay, so the reason it's there is because I want my stack to be aligned. And then you just poke through the same holes you've poked before. One way to check if you have successfully poked through your holes is to put the holes against a light source, and you can see them right there. Okay, once you've made the holes for the writing pages, now you're going to do it to the same thing to the bookends and the cover. And the reason I don't do this all at once is because it's so thick, if you do it all at once, that it makes it really hard to poke through the holes. But see, it's much simpler when you do one before the other. Then what I do to make sure everything is held in place is I just use these paper clips to hold all the pages together. I